Hello, my name is Denim, and in this hopefully short video, I'm going to be teaching you the basics of Lua coding. So to get started, we're going to go to Server Script Service here and add a new script. First thing I'm going to teach you is what's called a variable. There's two ways of declaring variables. My variable equals 6. If you want to make a variable, you have to have an equal sign, or you could say local my other variable. Doesn't need an equal sign this way. The reason why you want to use local, and you should always be using local pretty much, for everything in this tutorial, you want it to be local. So we'll get rid of this one because it's wrong. Local my other variable. So we can declare it without giving it a value. This is a bad practice. You should not do this either. Usually, local my other variable equals 7. I could also make another variable. We'll call it my word. And we'll make this one equal to hello there. We could have a variable can hold anything in Lua. In other programming languages, it's not like that. Some are really picky about what you put in them, but in Lua, it doesn't matter. So we got this going on, and then I'm going to show you what's called the print function. This is probably the most used function you'll ever see in your entire life. So it basically just takes whatever you put inside these brackets, and it'll put it down here. So as you can see, I was putting stuff down here earlier. So first, I think I'm going to print my other variable, and when I run it, we see my other variable right there. It's 7. Maybe I want to print my word. You already know what's going to happen with that, so I'm not going to show you because it's just going to print the word. Maybe I want to add two things together in here. So I'm going to say my favorite word is. So I'm printing this string, and then I'll put two dots next to it because I want to add two strings together, and we'll say my word. I'll put a little space here so it makes more sense. My favorite word is hello there. That's 2 words, whatevs. I could also do this with a number. So we'll say my other variable. My favorite word is 7. So right now, you should be understanding this pretty simple, I think. Variables, all you really got to know. Okay, so next I'm going to get into functions. What a function is it's basically just a variable that can hold code, and then you can use the code later. So instead of doing local x equals 18, I can do local function add two numbers, and you gotta have the brackets here, and then everything inside of this is the code that's stored in the function. So what you have to do is you can leave these empty if you want, or you can add variables to it. These are called parameters when they're inside the brackets here. So my parameters are going to be number 1 and number 2. You can name these whatever you want to name them. Again, it's like a variable. So what I'm going to do is return. Now you can return whatever you want. I could just return number 1 if I wanted to. I could return 5 or 6 if I wanted to. What I'm going to do is return number 1 plus number 2 because I'm adding two numbers together. Alright, so now that we've made the function here, we can do this. I will do local answer equals add two numbers. We'll add 6 and 12. And then we'll do print answer. Now, fun fact, print itself is a function, right? You see these brackets are looking familiar? So when I do print, I'm passing this as a parameter. So we'll run the code. Let's see what happens. 18. We added the two numbers together. It returned it, and the answer was 18. So you can do a lot of things with functions. They don't have to have parameters. Keep that in mind. A lot of functions you make will be void functions, which means they don't return anything, or they'll have no parameters. Another thing you can do with functions. So you'll notice that I called the function. To call the function, I had these brackets here. If I did this, this won't crash. I don't think this won't crash. But it said something really weird. It said 0x2a7e4 whatever. This is the pointer. This is the pointer. So the pointers don't make any sense. It's gonna blow your head up if you try to understand it right now at this level. But basically, the pointer is where this is in memory. So again, that sounds really complicated. Don't worry about it. Just know that sometimes you'll have to use it like this, like in events, which will come later. So So that's everything about functions that you need to know. Next up, I'm going to be teaching you comments. So it's really useful for explaining what you're doing. So I'll be like creating a variable, and I'll say x equals 20, right? Obviously, we're making a variable of x equals 20 here, but when you create more complex code, you definitely want to add comments so you can understand it later. If you're making code without comments, you're doing it wrong, I promise you. So the next thing we're going to learn is, it's called if, else, and if else. So these are conditional statements. So if I say if, we have to have brackets here, if x is equal to 20, then we're going to print x is my favorite number. And x is 20, so x is my favorite number. Oh my gosh. But if x, let's say x is now 19, nothing happens. Why does anything happen? Because x is not 20. Now, keep in mind, equals 2 is different from equals. Equals 2 is 2 equal signs. Equals is just 1 equal sign. So use 1 equal sign when you want to give a variable a value. Use 2 equal signs when you want to compare it to a value. That might be kind of confusing to start off with, but it'll probably cause like a good chunk of your errors. So now, I want to add something to happen when x isn't 20, when it's not my favorite number. We'll put an else statement. It goes inside the between the if and end. So else, let's print, get that number out of here. X isn't 20, we're getting that number out of here. Let's make it 20 again. And just for the sake of demonstration, x is my favorite number again. Let's go. Another thing you can do is between these, you can say else if. One word. If you put a space here, it's going to give you all kinds of annoying problems. Else if. This is the way to do it. And it's basically, if this thing wasn't right, then let's try this thing. So else if x is greater than 20, we'll just print x. We'll print x is bigger than my favorite number. Now, what do you think is going to happen here? Is it going to do this and this, or is it just going to do this? I will show you what it does. When we run this, x is my favorite number. It does not say get that number out of here. It will only take one path. Okay, so that is if-else statements. They're really useful. You're going to love them. They're really good in functions, whatever you got to do. Now I'm going to teach you what's called a while loop. So a while loop, and there's two different types of loops, while and for. So we'll start off with while. Same, it's kind of similar to if-else because it uses the brackets here for a condition. While x is less than 5, do end. Now we don't have an x yet, so let's make one. Local x equals 1. So we'll do print. We'll print, here's what we'll do. We'll print x. We'll add is the current number. If we run this, oh my goodness. Okay, so I made an error here, and it basically did it 5,000 times. So it ran infinitely because x is 1, and that 1 is always less than 5. So it just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating however much it wants. So to avoid this, we're going to do x equals x plus 1. So every time we go through this loop, it'll add 1 to x, and then it'll only go 4 times. Are you ready? There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you want it to go and be equal to 5 sometimes, so now it'll go up to 5 because we're doing less than or equal to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could do it the other way. We could put a lot of different conditions in here. You'll learn more about them as you code, but this is the gist of it. There's other types of loops. So before I teach you those, I'll actually teach you what a list is. It's a type of variable basically. So to make a list, it's just the exact same way you make a normal variable. So we'll say local my list equals, and then to make it a list, you have to have these curly brackets here. So list can have nothing in it, like right now. You can have one thing in it, like right now, or you can add multiple things to it by going 8, 9, 100, however you want to do it. And you can have as many things in this list as you want. Each thing should be separated by a comma. Spaces don't matter. Another thing you can do, this will help a lot. You can thank me later for showing you this. My list equals, you can do it like this: 800, 6,000. Call this one my list too. Like, it doesn't matter what's in the space. What matters is the commas. So I'm gonna do some things. I'm gonna print. Let's print length of the list, and we'll concatenate that with my list 2 dot. Actually, my bad. To get the length of the list, how many numbers are in it, you put a pound sign. This will give you how long it is. So my list 2 is 3. The length of the list is 3. Let's try this with just my list, and we will get 4 because it's 4 numbers long. Lists can hold whatever you want in it. For this one, let's make it a string. Nope. Let's do high. Okay, we made it high. You can hold whatever you want. It's a variable. Lists are useful because you can loop through them. So that's what makes loops useful too. So this applies to loops because you can loop through the list. So to do this, there's different ways. I'll show you the weird way of doing it first. Local x equals 1. While x is less than the length of my list 2, let's print my list 2 and use these square brackets here. Maybe it's kind of hard to see. Use the square brackets to access the index in the list. So I can put whatever number I want in here. Keep in mind there's only 3 numbers here. So 800 is index 1, 700 is index 2, high is index 3. So if I do this, it'll print index 1. If I do this, it'll print index 2, which is 700. What I want to do is print index x because I want x to change. And then each time we'll do x equals x plus 1. So this should print everything in my list. And I'll just add a little thing here. My list item is dot dot my list dot dot at index, and then we'll add the index here. And we'll click play. My list item is 800 at index 1. My list item is 700 at index 2. So I made a mistake here because it never said high, and we should be doing less than or equal to. And now it'll do all the things. My list item is high at index 3. So this is the weird way of doing it. This works if you don't know how to do it the other way. It's a little bit harder to do it in the way I'm about to show you. So for I item in pairs, let's go through my list this time. My list do. So this looks really stupid and long, but it's basically just something you got to memorize. It doesn't really mean anything. So I is the index number. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Item is just a variable we're making. So this is I is also a variable we're making. We could call this, and it doesn't matter. So if I want to, I'll show you exactly how this works right now. Print whatever I wrote there. Then we'll print item. And this is going to loop through each item in this list. Each thing in this list. I can name this whatever I want to. I'm not going to change it because it's weird. So it looped. Hold on, I got other stuff going on. Yeah, here's what we'll do. Put a space between it, and then we'll put the item. So this, at index 1, we have 7. At index 2, we have 8. At index 3, we have 9. At index 4, we have 1,000. So that's what this is doing. It should make sense now. If not, don't be afraid, because this took me a little bit to understand too. It's just something you gotta memorize. That's the end of loops. I can get into events right now. Basically, it's like a thing that happens that causes other things to happen. So I'm gonna make a function, and we'll call it, say, player name, and we'll put a player in here. And then what we want to do is, I'm going to teach you something crazy right now. If you put a colon here, you can choose what data type goes in here. So the data type I'm choosing is player, an object that represents a presently blah blah blah. I'm choosing player. So player. This might be really confusing. I can name this whatever I want. In fact, I'm going to name it ASDF just for the sake of clarity. ASDF is a player. I can also make ASDF a number. I'm just going to print ASDF dot look at all this stuff we got going on here. I want to get his name. We're going to print the player's name, and then I'm going to do something that's not going to make any sense. Local players, so I'm making a variable here, equals game get service players. Don't worry about this. I'll teach this in another video. It's just don't have time in this one. It's going to take a while. Now, here comes the events. So I don't know if you noticed, but when I was typing ASDF and then dot, there's a whole bunch of events here. That's these little purple lightning bolts. So we got character added, changed, idled, catted. So whenever they talk, you can do something. I'm not going to worry about that right now. What I want to know is when the player joins. So players dot player added. That means a player's joined the game. And then we'll do a colon here, connect. Now there's also wait, which can be useful. Connect parallel. Don't worry about all this other stuff. Wait and connect, really, we gotta wait for it, or think about. Wait is gonna make it so that you'll wait until a player's added. Connect will connect a function to the event. So we'll do connect, and then what we want to connect is, say, player name. Now when you do this, as you can see, I didn't add the brackets like I always do. It's because we're actually giving it the variable and not like the code. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to run this, and it's going to print my name right there. If I added the brackets, it's not going to work. It's just going to give me errors, and you won't understand why. So make sure you don't put brackets here. That is basically the gist of it. Yeah. In the next few videos, I'm going to be teaching you more about the services and whatnot. Yeah.